Roddy to MLG Office Hours. Thanks everyone for coming and joining us today. Very excited about our guests. It's like the power duo, entrepreneurial, just aesthetics masterminds of Steven and Renata Roddy. And so, Steven and Renata, I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourselves a little bit, but I'll touch on quickly the fact that you have more businesses than I can count. I think there's at least four, but it may be more than that.
Yeah, for right now.
We've got Roddy Medspa, we've got Modern BeautyCon. There's a couple others in there that I'll kind of let you expand upon. But first and foremost, thank you guys for joining us. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's always great to see you,
Justin.
Justin.
Absolutely. We know the Roddies well. Like we've gotten to work with them quite a bit, see behind the scenes a little bit in some of their business endeavors. So I guess, on our end, I mean, our firm, we are a healthcare specific firm, very transactional focused. For anybody who doesn't know out there, we do a lot of mergers and acquisitions, compliance work, really heavy in medical aesthetics. So that's how I got to meet the Roddies and kind of really learn more about their business. I actually drove up to North Shore, Boston, sat down with Steven at a diner, had some sort of egg salad, and it was, we just got to rapping about medical aesthetics. So it was fun. But I guess I'll throw it to you guys, if you don't mind, take us through, the businesses, the evolution. I know it's a very broad question, but I believe it started like you got married and you were like, hey, let's start a couple of businesses together, and here we go.
Well, it kind of started
Something like that.
I'll say it started before then. So, well, I went to school to be a preacher, and then in seminary, I discovered like I just felt more and more called to businesses than actually like inside of a church. So when I was 23, I bought an arena football team in Georgia, and I was like, who's the prettiest girl I can get to do the coin toss? And typical guy. And then it was in Georgia. I'm like, maybe I can hire Miss Georgia. Like maybe that's a thing. So it turns out it was a thing. So I hired Miss Georgia to do the coin toss. And then it turns out you can date Miss Georgia if you have a football team. So like I was able, so then she and I started dating. And then after the football team, I was like, wait, how much did you say you spent on your dress again? And how much on coaches and all that stuff? And I was looking for something to do online because that was an emerging trend back in like 2007. And so I landed in the space of pageantry. I was like, maybe I could just create this portal and like all these pageant girls could just come and then find what pageant they want to compete in, buy dresses, hire coaches and all that. And so I did that for about like roughly 8 years before I met Renata. And you date where you work. So I was Renata's MC. She was Miss Massachusetts, United States, and we met in DC.
I randomly decided I wanted to do a pageant. This is probably why I love combining Roddy Medspa and Modern BeautyCon, is because I get to use different parts of my brain and I get to just have different creative outlets. But I was at the hospital working, and I was an OB nurse for almost 10 years, which I loved, but OB does tend to get a little bit routine. So I decided to go back for my master's and get my nurse practitioner, and I was going part-time while working full-time, and I was still a little bit bored. So one of my coworkers was like, you should compete for Miss USA. And I'm like, Brenda, you don't just like walk in and compete for Miss USA. Like you have to win a state title. And she was like, well, you should go do that. So I was like, oh, interesting. So I was home one night and I was bored, and I'm looking up like Miss Massachusetts USA, and their like office was like in Malden, which is where I lived at the time, the city that I lived in. So I was like, oh, it's a sign. They're having an informational meeting next week. I'm going. So I went to the meeting, and next thing you know, I'm handing them my credit card. I'm signing up. So I competed for 2 years, and then in 2014, when I won, I went to nationals, and Steven was the MC. So that's kind of like how we originally met.
Yeah. So it was a high buy sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then this fate would have it, I met her in a fashion show in New York. It's like, oh, I remember you. And then that's how things took off there. And since she was Miss Massachusetts and it didn't matter where I lived, I moved up to Massachusetts. So that's what got me here. And then her dream was to do injectables. And she had been a nurse at that point for, I don't know, 6, 7 years.
So I graduated in 2010. We started Roddy Medspa in 2017. So I got certified in 2016. So yeah, I'd been a nurse for about 6 years.
Okay.
And then I got certified, and I was going to be happy working in a med spa and call it a day. Steven, on the other hand, being the entrepreneurial man that he is, was like, why don't you open up your own medical spa? You're a nurse practitioner. You
Fill in the
know?
blanks. I was like, I'll take care of all the
Yeah.
business. You do all the
Right.
people, like, we got this. It can't be that hard.
Right.
So, and so we did that. And as the business grew, she had to get more involved into the business. But then she came up with the idea of like, oh, there's no educational conferences that come into New England. So we started Roddy Med Spa a year and a half into our marriage. So
Okay.
like you got the newlywed thing, and then you've got the like business thing on top of that. And as a side note, like I think people overcomplicate creating med spas. I mean, there's numbers floating around that you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we started our med spa with $7,000. And like we literally ordered one vial of Botox. We rented out a room inside of a salon. We
Yep.
got down to our target niche demographic. And then after 6 months, it's like, oh, okay, like this is working. And then we went out and bought the space that we're in now, and actually bought it versus like renting it, because that's where we were at the time. Made a lot of mistakes along the way, but like we didn't have the pressure of if we don't sell X units, these things are going to expire, or we're going to lose our shirt or whatever. Because we just started with like, what could we afford with where we were, and you know, it's a blessing and a curse. Like when you're, what I'm about ready to say is I don't do too much research on like what other people do or how other people do it. I'm just like, oh, this is what we can do, and this is the pathway that I see forward. So let's just take that step. And that can really work for you. Like in this case, I didn't have any preconceived notions of what a new startup med spa looked like. But I mean, there's also many times it shot me in the foot and I've taken the long way around because of that. But going to Modern Beauty Con, that was Renata. I was literally on a business call, and she was like, I want to start a medical aesthetic conference, and I want you to be our first speaker. I was like, I'm sorry, can you hold on a second? Can we talk about this a little bit? And so she got very excited about that. It's combining her two passions, education and aesthetics, with, and this is the beautiful thing about Renata, there's zero thought of how we're actually going to make money on this. She's like, we just need to have a lot of just really good education, no sponsored talks, and it needs to be in New England, and I want it to be boutique. So I'm like, okay, cool. Most expensive place in the world to hold a conference, smaller audience, all right, zero sponsored talks, and then I have to somehow find a way not to lose our shirt in this. Okay, got it. So that's basically how it came about. And then that was like, well, so this is going to be our 5th year of doing that.
We launched that in 2021. I think, actually, no, yeah, we were supposed to have it go live in 2020, but obviously world pandemic, so we pushed it to 2021. That was our first year. So,
and out of those, I mean, other businesses have started and that complement this business, but we don't have to go into those. But
those are primary.
Those are primary.
It's incredible. I mean, God, I want to start with, buying a football team at 23, but we'll have to save that for like, session 2. So Renata, so Modern Beauty Con is incredible because truly, like, it's been on our radar for a while. As a matter of fact, I think I was hounding you last year, this poor woman. It was like May, I don't know, say it starts May 30th. It was like May 29th. I'm like, can we possibly get on stage? And I had Erica Berry calling like favors in, and Renata's like, please talk to me next year. So we kind of let it simmer, and then we stalked her again to kind of get involved. But it is, like you said, it's a very unique show. It's in New England. Forgive me, I have an ambulance going by. It's in New England. I do agree, like we don't get, we do a lot of work in Dallas and in California and all the spots you would think, right? And there's endless shows every weekend in those spots in New York. But like truly, like Boston, we don't, New England, we don't get a ton of love, I feel like. And you guys bring together this really expert clinical track, you know, and I know you offer kind of a virtual option as well, which will have more of the business track stuff, but you have a really cool clinical, you know, specific in-person lineup. So how did that come about? Like, how did you, given all the, you know, the pieces Steven said, um, sorry, given all the pieces Steven said, you know, we're small show, boutique, you know, let's basically not make money. Like, how do you bring that together and actually turn this thing into like, and it's growing year after year?
Well, and I'll also say she refused to have it virtual, and her first year of the conference was 2021 during COVID shutdown. So
Yeah,
there's another
so-
like another obstacle.
So we like, you know, we not only not make, we lost money year one because to Steven's point, it was COVID. I don't know if you remember, like they, you know, the seats, everything had to be like 6 feet apart.
Yep.
They were requiring at the time, the vaccination cards. So everyone had to have a card, 6 feet apart, mat. It was like a whole thing. So all of those protocols. So we could only fit with every single chair being 6 feet apart, 50 people anyway.
Wow.
So we sold 50 tickets, so we sold out. But we would probably sold more had there not been so many restrictions.
Sure.
With that whole vaccine thing got complicated. So we did it, but it was really, really stressful. And to Steven's point, I really did not want to do it virtual. I'm like, I'm sick of virtual. Everything is virtual. People are craving in-person connection. People want to talk to other people. So I just truly like refused. So it had to be in person. But yeah, we lost money. So, you know, I don't regret it. I think it was an awesome launching pad. I was able to just, through having years prior of relationships with other clinicians in the field, because I've always, you know, done private trainings. I've always done cadaver labs. So in those years prior to doing these private trainings and doing these labs, I've just met so many amazing people that are now part of our faculty. So I was able to, you know, through those relationships, kind of, you know, further cultivate new relationships through them to gain additional faculty. And that's kind of like how that started. Now we have a whole system on our website where you can submit an abstract if you want to be a speaker, you know, we'll go through a screening process, etc. But in the beginning, it was truly just via like the relationships that I had kind of cultivated throughout the years prior and to how we got this amazing faculty from year one.
Yeah.
So,
We also leveraged the faculty to be like, hey, do you know so-and-so? And I mean, I didn't know anyone from Adam. I mean, I remember like when we got Lori Robertson to come speak, Renata was so excited. I'm like, cool. It's great. All right. So,
I love
but she's like, she's so glad you.
I love her.
I mean, Erica Berry came very first year.
Erica came year
So-
one. I had done a private training with her prior. She's awesome. Yeah, we've from year one have had an amazing faculty.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
And how is you know, logistically scaling? I mean, there's so many, again, so many conferences we see showing up now, but there's something you guys, I think, tapped into with the way you've done it. You know, what's the kind of your core big names coming in to speak, but really core clinical. Like, how has it been? I mean, even finding like logistics, space, and growing into that. Like, has that been a lot of work, or the pieces just as long as, you know, if you build it, they will come? Like, how do you balance that out? You know, that out.
Well, you know, the space is tough in Boston because we right now, you know, we obviously have to account for like our exhibit hall. We have to account for our clinical track. Now, of course, new to 2025, we're like, let's add one more. So we expand. Now we have a esthetician track. So the space is challenging because in Boston's very old. It's very historic. So these hotels are small. So we only have a limited availability of hotels that can host us, you know. I wish we were like a Nashville where there's so many fun, cool hotels that could host 400, 500 people.
Right.
But we are limited in Boston. So that part's a little challenging space wise.
But when it comes to scaling the conference or any business like Medspa, your practice, it really just boils down to like what worked and then what could be improved. And so
Right.
all our businesses, we have a a weekly touch-in where it's like, all right, what worked this past week and what could be improved? And the goal is to increase by 2% every week. It could be increasing efficiency, profitability, just like maybe reducing some like operational things that are no longer meaningful because that takes away your energy. Just like corporate operation things is kind of like that hall closet or that junk drawer where you're like, what? Where did all this stuff come from? Like it just accumulates. So you come out and then you're looking at it, it's like there's more stuff. So trimming that back. So with the conference and with any business, you just got to find that one lever that if you pull it, then it'll have everything else go. And we found out early on that it was the speakers. Like, okay, if we get the right speakers, people will go to like, nowhere, like to see them. Now, which is interesting, is conferences larger than ours, like when we introduce a new speaker to our stage, because we now like create a systematic way to like find new speakers, make sure they're quality before we put them on stage, so that we're not just recycling other speakers from other conferences. But now other conferences are starting to take our speakers, which is like a compliment, because it's like, not that we discovered them or like we made them, but like we just have a process so we make sure that we're having new talent, because we want people to come back to a Modern Beauty Con every year and feel like, oh, this was a new event. It wasn't like, oh, it's basically the same materials they did last year.
I love this idea of 1% better or 2% better, because James Clear, Atomic Habits talks about this 1% better. But you guys stepped it up, you doubled. So they're like, every week we're gonna now be 2% better and get there that much faster.
Well, the thing I like about 2% is it's completely attainable, and you have 100% growth every year if you do it 2%. You basically take a few weeks off, Christmas, vacations, whatever. But to me, like that is the mindset, and it's totally attainable. And if you get all of your staff buy-in, it's not these massive wins, it's not these massive ideas. It's just like, why are our meetings 45 minutes? I feel like it waste 15 minutes. Couldn't they just be 30? Or do we really need a meeting like for this? Couldn't it be an email? So things like that really improve just quality of life for your staff, quality of life for your customers, all of that. So it doesn't have to be big wins. It's singles. It's not home runs, it's singles.
I know what's even more fascinating is, Renata, I think, did you have 2 babies along the way, and in Roddy Medspa, your journey there, we just omitting that fact that like had a couple of kids while, not that Steven wasn't involved, but
Yeah.
mothering children while getting the spa and this business going.
So crazy. But yes, in 2023, we had our first son, our first baby, London, and Modern Beauty Con was 10 days before my due date. So I was very, very pregnant, and I thought, well, worst case scenario, Mass General Hospital is right down the road, not a big deal.
And there's hundreds of nurses in the audience.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm in the safest audience ever possible. One of our faculty, Hermine Warren, used to be a midwife. So worst case scenario. But yeah, I was 10 days before. And then in 2024, because I had the boys back to back, we had our second son. I was 14 days, 2 weeks before my due date. So yeah, it just we didn't plan it, so that's just kind of how it goes in life sometimes, right? You got to roll with it. But yeah, I was very, very 9 months pregnant for 2 years in a row. So I'm very happy, to be going to Modern Beauty Con this year. Right? No baby on the way. We're just drinking and relaxing at the part that I couldn't. That's it. I love kind of mingling and having I'm not a big drinker, but I like a cocktail here and there, and I couldn't do any for the past 2 years. So I'm excited this year to like share a cocktail with you guys.
Yeah, a very large open bar that because we ran out this rooftop bar downtown Boston for the event, and they put 2 servers, like one on me and one on Renata, but that server was like, oh, she's just doing virgins. So all right, both of them.
Right. They kept bringing me ice chips,
Ice
remember?
chips, yeah.
I don't know why, but with both babies, I just loved eating ice. I guess it's like kind of common, but I just kept eating
Yeah.
ice chips. And so the server just kept bringing me glasses of ice chips, like, and refilling my ice chips.
Yeah. So, and it's, I think that a lot of times people use their kids as excuses of like why they can't do things or can't take a risk now, or
Sure.
they're too crazy right now with kids. And we're of the mindset like, you got born into our life, like you're welcome. You know, not very, I mean, it's like you're our pride and joy, but also like we are doing our life and you get to come along with
Right.
it. Like we're not stopping everything just because you're in our life. I mean, you mean the world to us, but you are not our world. Like she and I are first, they come second, but
Yeah.
then we all get to do life together. And I feel like that gives them a sense of security. Like I always knew that with my parents, I was number two, and my parents had a business, and
Mhm.
like they're like, cool, you're free, you're going to be working on the company. And it started when I was like 9. I did my first 40-hour week construction job with my dad when I was 9, dragging lumber and stuff. And then neighbor actually threatened to call like child services at the beginning of the week because he thought he was working me too hard. But my dad was like, mind your own business. Very old school. He's like, well, you need to mind your own business.
Right, right.
They're from the country.
Yeah. So, but like I had a great childhood, and it was like for the other business that we started, I think Liam was when we started investing in real estate and remodeling and doing all that stuff.
Liam was just born.
Yeah, we bought 3 properties and he was 2 weeks old and started
Congrats.
remodeling them and, you know, all that stuff. So we're like, oh, because my dad was in real estate, and I was like, oh, we can do this. I don't know why I decided to do. I mean, I was taking real estate
Wonderful
courses.
time having a newborn and to start a real estate company as
Yeah.
well.
So, but you can do it. You can do it if you have, if you choose to. If you choose not to do it because you have kids, that's fine. Just don't use them as an excuse. Just saying, I'm choosing not to do it because I don't want the extra responsibility right now. That's great. But I don't feel like you should hide behind your kids. Don't know how I got on a soapbox, but I did.
No, listen, I get it. And I think that's fair. I really commend you guys, because I know if my wife and I tried to work together, I love her and I think she loves me, but I,
It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I will say.
yeah, I'm pretty sure she would have knocked me off a long time ago trying to work together and have the kids in between that. So again, that's just a true testament to your, power duo here.
Well,
It's not for everybody. I get it.
but like sometimes I take my business calls with my kids. I'm like, but like we've been to bank closing with our kids, and because we've been doing that when they're just a few months old,
Yeah.
like they're pretty well versed at like sitting down and just being there, and like they're good because we've done that life with them.
We just involve them in like everything.
Yeah.
So they're used to it. It's all normal to them. They're involved in everything we do and how we live our lives. And so I think it's just normal to them. Like
Yeah.
having them since they were teeny tiny and
with like working with your spouse, you got to respect the talents that they bring. For me, I've been an entrepreneur longer than Renata. I'm also older, 6 years older. But like when we started Roddy Medspa, we had to get clear on who was responsible for what.
doing what.
Because I'm like, well, no, don't do that. I've done that before. That doesn't work. And sometimes, I mean, when she was like, no, I want to do it. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And it did work, even though I've done it before and it hadn't worked, right? So not always the hero here. But one of the things that we did with Roddy Medspa, because there was friction, was like, who is responsible for what? So Renata is the CEO of Roddy Medspa, which has changed now, just as like a week ago.
Promoted, Steven? Are you?
I got promoted. I'm like, I just need one more business to run, just one. But we're not. But in the beginning, we had to get clear. So what I was responsible for was the marketing. Great. But she's CEO, so she can veto anything. you know, and if she did, I had to just be like, okay, let's try it. She's the
All right.
boss, right? In this company has its own organizational chart, and like I work for her in this company. And then when it came to Pageant Planet, like that was a different organizational chart. So we had to respect that. And there's things I've done with Pageant Planet that she didn't want me to do, but I'm the CEO of that one. And there was things I wanted to do differently than Roddy Medspa, but you know, she's the CEO of that. So you've got to trust the other person. And then ultimately for us, like we trust God that if the other person messes up, that it won't like end in catastrophe. So there's that fear there. It's like, we'll be able to recover, you know, because we have that relationship.
Yeah, you have to have some grace too, right? Because you're gonna, I mean, I wish there was a more, you know, like, is there a manual I can get on Amazon on how to do this? That would be so helpful. So we're gonna make, you know, you're gonna make mistakes along the way, but I think just having like that grace with each other too is very, very helpful. So that, I would say that was like, you know, one of our challenges in like the beginning was kind of like, who's gonna be responsible for what? Okay, here's our organizational chart, and then like, okay, if this doesn't pan out how I thought, then we're gonna be, you know, extending grace over and not be so hard on each other, because that could get sticky, right? Too. So
Yeah.
So, it's incredible. So you guys are very big on core values, right? And so this is something that Steven, we've talked about. And a matter of fact, to the extent that we ended up having, our firm ended up having an offsite in New York after a show a couple months back, and we rolled out all new core values. And now when we're hiring, you know, the values are front and center. And honestly, I took a lot of that from a discussion we had. So how do you make sure that, number one, everyone's on the same page what the values are? Are they the same across the companies? Are they different? And you know, how are you making sure folks like live the values in each organization?
It's so good. Like a lot of times people talk about company culture, and all company culture is what you as a CEO promote or discipline against. If you promote people that suck up to you and then backbite each other, it's going to be a crappy culture for them. Maybe not for you, but for them. So for us, we wanted to be intentional about it. And to your point, Justin, the core values follow the CEO in our world anyways. So Roddy Medspa has different core values than Modern Beautycon Pageant Planet. So for both of us though, the process was the same of how to discover it. And what we did, I made a list of all the employees that I hated working with and all the employees I loved working with. If you don't have a history of being an entrepreneur, do the same thing, but with your coworkers or managers. What's all the attributes? Like names aren't important, attributes are. So what was it about them that got on your nerves? And what was it about them that you loved working with? And what you'll start to see is this as like the antithesis of this. And you start to narrow it down. And you don't want any more than 5, like 3 to 5. And then Renata did the same with her. And for us, once you get those core values, then you've got to integrate it. So all praise or correction is against the core values. It's not just like, I didn't like the way that you did that. If you can't bring it back to the core value, like one of the employees' disciplines that get on your nerves, then either ignore it or adjust the core values, because like that's the rules of engagement. So whenever anyone is hired within our organization, and we started to do this with subcontractors also, just like different people that we work like tech teams, et cetera. We're like, hey, here's our core values. And I'm also looking for a way to do it with my clients too. Like people that work with us, I want them to let them know that these are our core values, but I haven't found a way to back into that yet. But you just let them know, because there's 2 rules for every employee. 1, don't make your boss mad, and 2, don't get fired. But the problem is they don't really know what makes your boss mad, and they don't know what's going to get them fired. So the first arbitrary number, but let's say 6 months, they're just feeling it out. Like they don't know. So what I do is I'm transparent. I'm like, hey, if you want to make me mad, don't do these. If you want to get promoted and increase, do these. And because if you ignore the core values, over time, you either force yourself out of the organization or we'll let you go because it's just oil and water. And when I first introduced core values to the staff that I had, I like apologized to them. I was like, hey, I learned something that it's not really clear what ticks me off or not. And I was like, and that's not fair to you because like you're left guessing and that could cause some stress. Like that's on me. I didn't make those intentionalities clear. So like moving forward, these are the rules of engagement. And there'll be changes. I don't know what some of those changes are because they'll just evolve over time. And this is like, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. But I was like, but this is the new values. And I went through them all. So that's how to incorporate it. But with Roddy Medspa, we do one meeting a month, a team meeting, and we go through all the core values and we go round robin. Somebody picks one and they say like, why is that important for having a successful company? And then they use it in their own words, which further instills it. And Pageant Planet, we have more of a rhythm because it's all virtual. So we meet, do a team meeting every week, but we review our core values at the first meeting of every month. And we do the same thing. We go round robin.
It's awesome. And that's really shaped all of your organizations, it sounds like, and who you bring on and the whole business.
Yeah, you fire and you hire against it.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Actually, when we've done some hiring recently, I've used our core values to lead the interviews because I want to make sure that that person that I'm hiring and bringing on is going to fit into our core values. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And then everybody has the same standard. There's no like, oh, it's favoritism. It's like, well, no, like you can look, these are the core values. And then when people let go, it's not a surprise. It's like you consistently violate the core values. And I had one girl that I keep giving her chances, but one of our core values is course correction. I'm like, not following, because I'm like, you're going to mess up. And that's totally fine. It's like, it's expected. You're going to mess up. But if you keep making the same mistake again and again, and again, you're not course correcting, and that just wastes everybody's time, you know? So she was like, I know you want to let me go because I'm not course correcting and I keep making the same mistakes. So I was like, oh, whoa. You know, so, but
They know.
But they know, you
You
know,
know, as I say, she knows the value though.
yeah, they know, and that's a good thing. And you still have to repeat it all the time. But for me, you cannot change anyone's behavior. Like talked to some med spa owners, like I had a really good conversation with my last provider. I think they finally got the consult right. I'm like, okay, we'll see how that works.
Right.
People's behavior doesn't change because you as the owner, and you know this, Justin, because you've had so many companies and so many dealings with people, but like you are like, okay, they got it. And then they're walking away and they're thinking whatever they're thinking, but they did not get it because we take the path of least resistance. And the only way to change someone's behavior, it's not through conversation, it's through changing of systems. You have to change the system to force the behavior change. And then you've got to have lots of conversations about their behavior in relation to the system. But you have to have a system that keeps those guardrails on, or they'll just never change and forget the 2% increase.
See, this is what I love about talking with you guys because I don't think we've said filler once except for right now. And like, we're kind of on this aesthetics platform, but yet, we're talking like just running business 101, people, interactions, relationships. So that's what's always brilliant about like any communication with you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. And like a lot of these, what is it? Solopreneurs, yeah. Or they have like one or two injectors, like, I just need an office manager. No, you don't. What you need is a system first, and then you need somebody to like run the system. And I fully appreciate that people don't always have the time to create a system. Like with Roddy Medspa, the reason I needed to step in as CEO is one, like Renata doesn't want to do business, and she made
Right.
that clear. And I was like, you don't
From
have
day
to.
one.
She did, yeah. I was like, you don't have to, I'll do it. But the bigger it got,
Yeah, the bigger it got, I inevitably, I'm the one that's in the office day in and day out. So, you end up getting involved whether you want to or not, because people are gonna go to you when they know that like you're the owner. And so, there's no way around it. Like I had to end up getting very, very involved. So, it's a blessing. I've learned so much. I'm obviously still learning in terms of like the business world, but I'm definitely a clinician at heart, and that's where my passion's at, which is how Modern Beauty Con was birthed. So education is like my number one thing, and I want to be injecting and educating and not have to worry about the business part, hence the recent
Yeah.
change.
so,
Right.
but
Right.
it was weird when I would come into the office and try to run the system from like pretty much afar in this business model.
Sure.
Because it's a service-based business, the other ones are in essence virtually. Um, because it felt like, oh, dad's coming to the office now, we're all in trouble. So in order for me to really take over the reins, I had to move my office from my home to like the spa. So now I go and work at the spa during the open days, and I run the various businesses through there, but I'm there.
Right. Right.
And in that process, I realized, geez, she's so busy treating people. And then at the end of the day, she's rushing to get home with the kids. There's no one at the time who could think about the business from a topical level to work on the business because they're so busy working in the business.
Right.
She's putting out fires here.
Mhm.
So I come in, there's no real direct responsibility. Everybody already has their roles. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Why did we do this? Who's not following up? And then
Yeah.
it's like I'm seeing all these gaps in the system, and that's where it's hard being a solopreneur, where you're not just going to go and open up your med spa.
Right.
A lot of people think that they can, but then you'll work yourself to an early grave, or like you'll need a lot of extra Botox for all the wrinkles that you'll get. Because like if you're really going to do it right, you need to see your patients during the day, but then you need to block off. Doesn't have to be a lot,
Yep.
but end of your day, you need to have office hours where you're just working on the business. Yeah. Creating those systems and all that. And then and that can be carved out, it can be doable. But then after you've established that system, then you bring in an office manager who can run that system. Because
Right.
if not, you're going to be hiring a glorified front desk person, and
Right.
you're going to be expecting them to be this business person, which they're just not.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to come from the owner.
I love it. Well, Renata, it sounds like you made the right CEO hire, but if things don't work out and you need a proper termination, our firm handles some things like that. So we can talk about the proper process.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Love
Do
it.
you do recruiting, or do you do recruiting, or are you establishing systems and stuff?
Just, we're establishing systems and our firm, again, heavy focus on M&A, but we want to help people scale. And we do. We have so many young, aspiring, solopreneurs or entrepreneurs who want to hang their shingle. And they all kind of want to overdo it in the beginning and spend $1 million on a build out, right? And I've been there, right? I had a chain of dental practices with a dentist partner. And we made every mistake there was to make, so I learned like you guys, School of Hard Knocks, right? Like let's grow into the space. Let's not overbuild. Let's not overhire. And I'm still making those mistakes as a business owner, right? As in our law firm. But you continually try to put right people in the right seats. We try to follow EOS, if you guys are familiar, and even scaling up some of that entrepreneur mindset and operating system. So we work on that, but yeah, that's the same battle, no matter if you're in aesthetics or if you're, putting on conferences or running a law firm, it's really consistent themes, I feel like.
Yeah. You should tell them what EOS and scaling up is, just in case they don't know.
Yeah, so EOS is, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher it, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So Gino Wickman is an author who wrote a book called Traction for folks who aren't familiar. But if you are thinking of watching this and listening to the Roddies and getting inspired, grab this book, Traction. And it really, I'd say we follow kind of EOS light, so we're kind of implementing it, but we're not fully there. But it really gives you an operating, a manual to kind of set up your business and run your business. So kind of like Renata talked about, I wish there was a manual. It's not, no one's doing the work for you. So it can tell you here's the things to do when, how to set up your core values. And they actually start with values. Scaling up was kind of an older version of EOS by a guy named Vern Harnish. So they're kind of tied into each other, but there's kind of phases to building the business. And these books really kind of give you, a jump off point. And so you kind of know what you're doing as you're scaling up your business. And so we follow that lightly. We're trying to implement more of it. Again, the values was a big part of it. Each quarter this year, we're kind of, chipping away at implementing more pieces of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more familiar with scaling up than EOS. I learned scaling up first and then EOS. And to me, that was just such a light bulb moment. I'm like, oh, wow, there's like actual operating frameworks for how to run a business that you could drag and drop. But this is like where like knowing yourself is really good, where I'll start off and I'll follow something to the T, like exactly as close as I will, as close as I can, and like page by page, mark it up and do all those things.
Right.
Then after I've done that for a while, then I'm like, okay, I got a basis. Then I, in essence, forget the book, like intentionally. I'm like, okay, now how do I make this my own? Because a lot of those things, especially in scaling up, I'm like, all right, if you're a $50-60 million business and you have like 50-60 employees or something like that, like a lot of those, like the bigger frameworks are for that. And I just thought that they were overkill for the size and the staffing that we were now. And then I was like, can I do everything with just subcontractors? I mean, not a problem for the other businesses. And that seemed to work better for me because there's a lot of there's reasons for that. But yeah, or just how to replace people altogether just with software. Where we can. Yeah. Well, because that's the first thing we scale up. It's like, oh, I don't have money to hire someone. Okay, just look at your to-do list. What's the biggest time suck?
Right.
Like, is there a software that can take maybe 50% of that off your plate, off of that one to-do item?
Right.
When you break out what you make per hour, like Renata's average patient per hour is like $1,400 an hour. So let's say you remove the product cost out of that. So, okay, it's 700 for easy math. Anything that's like less than $700 is taking her time. We need to hire somebody else for that so it can make more in her schedule. So it's not always doable because it works on paper, but in real life, like, okay, I cannot pay that. But it's at least it's a good barometer to say, should I be doing this, or should something or someone else be doing it for me?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, again, I mean, kudos to, Steven, you are, not to diminish your side of it, but Renata, we have so many clients, a lot of our clients are, younger females, like I said, aspiring, kind of getting out of, and certainly there's males as well, but getting out of kind of the ER or hoping to, and they look like everyone knows your name in New England. And it's really cool. Like I have to, as attorneys, I can't be like, she's a client. So I'm like, we know them, and people are like, oh, how do you know? And I'm like, we just know people. But they really look up to like what you've built. And so again, not to diminish Steven's efforts. I know you're there behind the scenes, but it's really cool to kind of see, you're this boss lady that I think a lot of our folks really look up to. And so pivoting to that, like tell us about, Modern Beauty Con, like and maybe each of you, what's the thing you're looking forward to most? What's different this year? What are you pumped about?
Yeah, so Modern Beauty Con, like I mentioned earlier, we have that new esthetician track. So we've always wanted to do an esthetician track, but I don't know, Steven has a very high risk tolerance and I have a very low risk tolerance. So I like doing everything like baby steps. So, we probably would have done it a long time ago, but I was like, let's just see how, like, let's just, get, work on our clinical track. And then we added the business track and I'm like, too much too soon. I get nervous. So let's just wait. So
Right.
got a good handle on the clinical track, the business track, and then we're like, let's do the esthetician track finally. So we launched it this year. We kept it one day, again, with the baby steps. I didn't want to do 2 days like the clinical track. I wanted to do just one day, see how it goes. And I'm like, I'll just be happy if we have 50 attendees. I'm happy. That's what we had year one for Modern Beauty Con. I'm good. And yeah, I think we have like 60 or something like that. So we've met our quota. And I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to see what estheticians think of it. I'm excited to read their feedback. We really take that survey to heart. I read every single response. So does Steven. We put it on a spreadsheet. We really use it to drive our the following years kind of plans for that meeting. So it's very, very important to us. So I'm really excited to see what the estheticians think about it, even the exhibitors too, because we've always only had like RNs, NPs, PAs. I'm curious how adding in estheticians into the mix within the exhibit hall, how the vendors will feel as well. So I'm just very, very much looking forward to the feedback, but also the mingling. I know it sounds silly, but like I said, the past 2 years I was very pregnant. So I really am excited to kind of like get to enjoy it a little bit more. Yeah, I was just so exhausted at these parties the past 2 years. So I'm excited to just have more energy, to mingle with everyone, and to network. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah.
What are you excited about?
Well, we tell our event planners that like, if we're actually working during the event, like you're not doing your job. Like our sole purpose there is to like shake hands, kiss babies, like have drinks, just have a good time with everybody
And I
there.
still run around all weekend.
Of course. Of course.
Can't help it.
But I mean, me, yeah, I'll be.
He's more relaxed. I can't. I'm like, is this getting done? Is this all set? Are we good over here? And they're like, good, Renata.
Yeah. Well, it's, you marry your equal and your opposite, if you do it right. Yes. They complement you and they have their strength is your corresponding weakness and your weakness is their corresponding strength. But some of the things that we're doing new, one, because our whole context is how do we help other people increase their profitability and their safety. So for exhibitors, like we emailed out all of our exhibitors and was like, we're giving everyone like one free ticket. So if the exhibitor had somebody like a vendor that maybe they're like, oh, they're close to buying a device or they're my VIP client, and then they can bring them and further develop that relationship with that one person throughout that weekend on our dime. So we thought that would be a way to make it even more valuable for our sponsors, exhibitors. The other thing is, again, with the context of helping to increase safety and profitability, we have established this like photo booth area. It's not the traditional photo booth, but we have props, like Christmas props, like 4th of July props, things like that.
We have like two, I think we're doing, is it 2 or 3? 2 or 3 basically like plain backdrops, like a white backdrop, and then we're having props. So people can plan ahead for their season. So like, for example, they want to do like a summer promo, we'll have summer props and they can kind of take selfies, beach ball, that kind of thing.
Do their hand like this to put like have a graphic designer do a a Botox bio or whatever.
So we're doing holidays. I forget. It's summer, Christmas, and I think there's one more. I think there's 3. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we're having like these photo stations because we had headshots done last year and that was a hit. People loved it. So we have headshots coming back. But in addition to that, now we have like photo booth areas for people to kind of like plan ahead on their social media.
And it's free for them to do. Like there'll be setups and then they can just do that.
They'll have lighting and stuff and they can just do their own like pictures.
Headshots cost because it costs us.
Yeah.
But the whole premise of like, if your headshot's dated and you're like, oh, we're going to make you look great, but like your shot looks busted, like you need a new one. So that was that. And then we started this thing last year going into the surveys called Modern Tech Talk. And again, like you're watching, you have your own med spa. you can do this with your actual patients. Like we do this with our patients. Like stop guessing what people want. Just like ask them and they'll tell you. And asking is a bit of a finesse, but as long as it comes up natural,
Right.
people will do it. They'll gladly volunteer. So we did this thing called Modern Tech Talk, which Renata came up with the name. I came up with the idea. And so, but basically no one wants sponsor talks. No one wants to sit through like a 30-minute commercial.
Right.
But like innovation is real. And like what we are finding from our audience that they are really interested in the innovation. So all of our sponsors, exhibitors can submit for free. It doesn't cost them anything and they can't pay to get nominated, but they submit their innovation that they've had over the last 12 months. And then Renata and I go through and it's like, oh, this is a cool like innovation. And then they get to do a 5-minute basically talk about their innovation. And then they can, that's like, if you're interested in hearing more, like come see me at my booth. But it's an educational component for the individuals. So we did a 30-minute slot of that. And the reviews were really mixed. Some people are like, oh, it's actually pretty good. Other people are like, oh, it's just such a commercial. Like, I didn't like it. But there was enough interest that we're now taking it like, okay, I think it was like 30 minutes is too long, even though we had like 6 different people like back to back to back. So now we're going to do like right before a break, for example, there will be a 5-minute modern tech talk where and then they go off to the break. So they can still hear that innovation, which is really important because even if you don't want the newest, greatest laser, you at least know what's out there. So if your patient comes in to ask, then like you can talk intelligently about it. Or you might be like, oh, I didn't know that my technology is outdated or this new discovery. So we think it's important. So even though majority of people didn't like it last year, there was enough positive. It was like, but why didn't the people like it? And so we were like trying to understand the psychology. It was like 50-50.
50, yeah.
And then so like, why didn't they like it? And so we're just trying this different
We're
angle.
tweaking it this year. See how the audience.
And then you see like, all right, is this is this something that we should eliminate altogether? But it benefits everyone.
Yeah, those are some of the new, any other new stuff? We have our IV bar, IV lounge is back.
Yeah, we're doing it. And we're doing things like different operationally, like for the speakers, we have fun things planned for them just behind the scenes. And we're doing a breakfast with the speakers. So like pretty much for the next like 20 people that buy tickets, they get to have breakfast with I don't
some of the faculty members like on Saturday morning and then on
very cool.
Yeah, just because a lot of the feedback that we get is our attendees just really enjoy kind of, because we are more of like a boutique conference, we're somewhere around 300-400 people. So the feedback that we get is that the attendees just really enjoy the opportunity to be able to speak to the faculty, to interact with them, mingle with them. So we kind of took that into consideration. We're like, okay, like how can they get even kind of more time with them? So we kind of thought of this idea last minute and we're like, all right, for the next kind of 20 people, let's kind of set up a dedicated breakfast time. And so we did that with our speakers for Saturday and Sunday morning. So we're super excited. It's going to be great.
And then, there's other stuff, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I know we're super grateful because this year we'll be there exhibiting. We're going to be doing kind of this on-site compliance assessment, and seeing how compliant or not spots are. Sure, all compliant, but please let's discuss. And then, you have your MB club, right? Which I believe there'll be an option there for us to kind of interact with some folks as far as, compliance and hopefully, you guys can help them continue to build clinically and operationally. We can hopefully keep them legal. And we're super excited. So, I mean, if there's any, parting words or wise words that you guys would share with all the fledgling spa owners out there, or experienced people looking to grow, what would that be?
Yeah, I want to say also too, if you are attending Modern Beauty Con, best way for you to prepare is to actually read your emails. We have a lot of information in there. So read your know before you go emails. Make sure that you download the app and we'll be sending out more information on that because the app is where everything is going to live. All your push notifications are going to be through that app, your schedule, speakers, etc. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'd say 2 things. fledgling Medspa.
Fledgling, yeah.
But
something
yeah, that word. One, like business, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so like when you're looking over your shoulder, I mean, this just happened to me yesterday. I was like starting in that comparison game, and that is just such a dangerous game because you compare your known weaknesses, like you know what your weaknesses are, you know what your flaws, to somebody else's perceived strengths, because no one else really like lays out all their dirty laundry, nor would
Right.
you. So you're just seeing what they post on social, maybe the way that their spa looks like or something like that. And you're like, gosh, I've been doing it for 10 years. They've only been doing it for 3, so then you're comparing, but it really is like, think in terms of like, this business is a 40-year sprint. So like however long you've been in business now, like do that math, like how much longer? So you don't have to get there with massive ideas, and it's not going to be this avalanche of business, and nor would you want it to be. Most of the times,
Right.
like success can cripple a business, too much success too fast. So keep in mind, marathon, not a sprint. And then the second thing is just do a to-do list. It sounds so simple, but like your most successful, this is going to be the most successful principle for you. Do a to-do list. Just make sure it's digital, not on paper. And then before you go to bed at night, reorder that to-do list from most important to least important, and then just do number 1, and then do number 2, and do number 3. Because like if you get too far out ahead of yourself, where you start thinking about all the moving parts or all the things that you have to do, it gets
Yep.
overwhelming. And if you have trouble deciding what's most important, just the thing that you want to do the least and that's going to bring you the most potential profit, do that thing first, and then do everything else. And then that alone will change your
Very
life.
helpful. I will say that I implemented that and it's been a game changer for me. So
Really
yeah, highly recommend.
awesome. Well, guys, cannot thank you enough. So excited for Modern Beauty Con, which give me dates, May 30th through June 1st.
June 1st. Yeah, May 29th is our virtual business day, and then May 30th we start off in person.
Love it. Love it. At the Sheridan, and which is a great area. Like you can't, that area in Boston, Copley's super fun, a lot of restaurants.
Yeah, attach right to the Copley, so you have all your fun, high-end shopping that we all love. Can't go wrong. It's gonna be awesome.
Love it. Well, thank you guys so much again for, working with us over the past, I don't know, couple of years and joining us or welcoming us, I guess, into the whole NBC family. And we're excited to see you there. And how can people find you if they want outside of the conference?
I would say if you're trying to find me, just email hello@modernbeautycon.com.
Steven's actually not, big into like social media, but you can find me at just at Renata Roddy or at Roddy Medspa.
On Insta.
Yeah, on Insta.
On the ground. All right. Cool. Well, thank you guys again. So great always seeing you.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks, Justin.
All right. Bye.
Bye.